Hello and welcome to a pro basketball show with me, Andrew Willett. We're in the midst of WNBA coverage and excited to bring our content to you. You can catch a pro basketball show on streaming services such as YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify with live broadcasts on playback. Make sure to follow us at APBShow on social media platforms such as Twitter and Instagram, with more coming soon. Without further ado, a pro basketball show. Hello and welcome to a pro basketball show. We are getting set and ready for the WNBA season just a week away, and today we're going to talk about the 2021 World Champion Chicago Sky. It's the second preview pod of our preseason coverage, and that is because, you guessed it, we are going in alphabetical order. And for today's show, I'm bringing in none other than James Tay, an expert on the Chicago Sky, a freelance writer who's worked for the Courier, the Chicago Tribune Media Group, and also as a co-host, producer, and social media coordinator for the Sky Hook podcast since 2019, and you can find it now on Apple Podcasts. James, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Andrew. Thank you so much for having me on the show. Just love talking hoops with anyone, man. So appreciate you giving me a little bit of your time.
I appreciate you coming on. First and foremost, I want to ask you about the offseason. Since the Las Vegas Aces were crowned champions a year ago, what have you been up to?
Man, I have just been taking some time to scout all these new prospects that have come into the WNBA this year. I am very excited about this rookie class because, while I thought that was a very top-heavy group, I still think that where some of these prospects landed, some of them have a real chance to flourish in the places that they're at. Like, I'm so excited to see Grace Berger in Indiana, Maddie Segrest, Dallas. I mean, those two players, I'm really excited to see what they're going to be able to do at the next level. So just been scouting, been trying to wrap my mind around what the Sky were going to do this offseason. And then after everything that went down, have been trying to wrap my mind around the aftermath of that. So it's been busy, but in the absolute best way.
I love to hear that. But getting into the Chicago Sky, as you mentioned, so much has gone down. For starters, and obviously it's a large lack of starters. No Candace Parker, no Courtney Vandersloot, no Allie Twiddley, no Emma Mieseman, no Azrae Stevens. They've also lost Alamond. And dating back to last year's off the championship team, no Stephanie Dolson, no Diamond DeShields. We're going to talk a lot about just the amount of talent out the door. But James, from your perspective, you've obviously spent some time at training camp. What is the state of the Sky?
You know, I still think they're waiting on some players to get there and get integrated into the system. But honestly, fans should be excited about what Dana Evans is going to bring to the table this year. She looks so much more polished than she did even in training camp last year, which I thought she looked pretty damn solid on both ends of the floor as well. So to see her get stronger, like when I saw her for the first time, I was like, Dana, were you just in the weight room this offseason? Like, she's like, I feel like everyone's been telling me that. It is something that has stood out to people. When you see Dana in person, she has put on some muscle, and the way that she's going to be able to fight through screens, I think it's going to give her some time on the floor that she wasn't really able to see last year because, you know, it's tough to make it as a 5'6" guard in this league. So fans are going to be really excited about Dana Evans specifically, but the whole group, I mean, it's going to be a tough defensive unit that I think there are going to be teams that are going to be thrown off by the level of intensity that they have in the backcourt and on the back line, quite honestly.
I was just reading about your 35-second drill, but you mentioned Dana Evans last season compared to this season. I want to take a step back with the Chicago Sky, touching on last season, where they lose game one in each of their first two series before eventually blowing a 2-1 lead to the Connecticut Sun. And they entered as, I would argue, one of the favorites. Definitely the second seed heading in with the tied for the best record in the league. Last season, what were kind of your main takeaways? And personally, I saw it as almost a disappointment.
I think it's fair to characterize it as that. They were operating within this 1-year window, whether they would like to admit it or not. I know that they did try to bring back everyone, obviously, because when you have that group, I mean, one of the things that we saw that was different in the Sky's offense from last year compared to James Wade's other years of coaching is that they didn't play up-tempo basketball. They had all these intelligent half-court players who could pick apart a defense. And again, like it's not even just losing Courtney Vandersloot, it's losing the facilitating of Candace Parker and Emma Mieseman, who both ranked in the top 13 in assists total last year, which I feel like a lot of people don't talk about. So the offense is going to look much different, but just looking at that team, I mean, I know that there's a lot of people who are going to be out there wondering, like, why should I still follow this team? And I just think, look, there's going to be so many exciting players. Like, people are going to fall in love with Marina Mabrey. You know, she just won MVP playing overseas with Skio. She even got ejected, which honestly is going to be like, she like recently got ejected one of those games that she recently played. And just the intensity, like that fire that this guy have. I mean, I know there's going to be a lot of emphasis about last year, but there's going to be so many stories to tell. And I think fans are going to just fall in love with this team just based on its grittiness.
So, real quick, I want a tangent here because you've mentioned Dana, you've mentioned Marina Mabrey. Do you see these two players playing a lot together? Who do you think has the edge in terms of that starting spot?
So I think Marina does. I mean, she just signed that massive contract. So that's obviously the optics of not starting someone like Marina Mabrey on day one would probably not look as good. But also, I do think that she has a chance to be an all-star this year. I really think that what her being in this more expansive role as a lead facilitator, being away from Arike Agumbawale, who is a score first guard, is not someone that has really shown that she's going to be getting her teammates involved as much compared to some of the other facilitators in this league. I think is going to open up so many things for Marina Mabrey. So I also think that gives Dana a chance to really lead the second unit and be that someone that can play with more freedom that we've seen her be successful with in Louisville. So yeah, I don't know if I don't know. I've never been someone that is really concerned about starting lineups. I think more about
Mm.
the closing lineup and thinking like, how does Courtney Williams fit into this? Like, is she going to play over Dano if this guy needs shot making? And I'm just curious more about like how the end of the game is going to look for this team. But I think I mean, Dana and Marina, I expect to see significant playing time this year for sure.
I was going to ask you about that and more on like that closing lineup. Later on, we're going to get to it, but your best five lineup for this group, I'm curious who you have from that standpoint. But you mentioned Marina Mabrey and all that the Chicago Sky gave up. It was a large offseason. We've mentioned all the talent they lost, but they bring in Marina Mabrey, Courtney Williams, Elizabeth Williams, someone I saw you mentioned yesterday, Isabel Harrison coming
Mhm.
in and taking over a role to go along with Kalia Chopper, Dana Evans, Rebecca Gardner returning, which I think we're all excited to see. But what do you think of this team's offseason?
You know, I think they made the most of it after seeing, again, all-time players in this league leave the roster. And again, James Wade said he has no plan on losing. So they went out and got the next best tier of free agents. And it was a gamble, but at the same time, if you believe in what you're doing, I mean, you can't go against what your heart is telling you. And I know there's going to be a lot of talk about the draft picks with the Marina Mabrey deal. The thing that I always try to point out to Sky fans with this is that the team just went 26-10 last year. So how the WNBA draft lottery works is that it's a 2-year cumulative record. So if the Sky went 26-10 last year and they I don't think they're going to be as bad of a team as I've seen some power rankings so far this offseason. They're already not going to get a high draft pick in 2024. Like that 2024 pick is probably not like, I don't know. I guess like if things really go bad this year, it's probably going to get them like the 8th to 12th pick in the draft, or honestly 8 to 10. So to me, it's all about that 2025 pick. And when I look at this guy's offseason, like that's the deal that probably is going to be the what like that's probably going to be the thing that sticks out to people. And that 2025 class is going to be probably a generational class, but it's a big move by James Wade. But again, if they believe they can win now, you got to show Kalia Copper that she has to stick around in Chicago to play with all these great players. And she's a free agent at the end of the year. Got to prove it to her right now that she should stay with the Chicago Sky.
Sticking with the draft real fast, we
Yeah.
touched on the free agents, the trade that the Sky made. They do bring in a couple of players, including Teyana Traylor. What did you think of the draft? How'd you rate the team's draft?
So it's tough in the WNBA, right? Where you don't see a lot of second, third round picks make it. Obviously Marina Mabrey is one of those exceptions, Allie Quigley as well. But at the same time, it's just really hard to make it in this league in general. So when you're not considered necessarily like a top 15 pick, for example, it's just harder to make it in this league. I have loved what I've seen from Kayana Traylor so far in camp this year. She has come in like she's almost like a vet, almost. I don't know, like I haven't had a chance to talk with her, but the way that she plays is fearless. And I noticed that when she was playing at Virginia Tech. I mean, everyone saw what she did at March Madness, but what she was able to do in training camp so far, it's just been really cool to see someone come in and play exactly what they were like in college and bring that intensity that I think James Wade really values. If you look at all the players that he brought in free agency, I mean, Courtney Williams, Marina Mabrey, like these are players that are fierce and are gonna, talk some shit. So sorry, I don't know if I'm not allowed to swear on this
Go
podcast, but
right ahead.
but Kayana Traylor brings that same type of intensity, and it would not shock me if she is on the roster to start the season at all.
I'd love to hear that. That was really my question. Whether you'd like to see her, and frankly, James, go right ahead. I am all for the intensity from you as well. It's the same with the Chicago Sky squad. Let's get into some expectations for this season. What kind of expectations do you think they have placed on themselves, giving away so much of their future, but also for how much they've lost? Where do you expect this team to be in terms of tiers in the league?
So the one thing I have to say, Andrew, is that the Chicago Sky are allergic to the word expectations. If any reporter comes in and says and utters the word expectations, James Wade shuts that down immediately. It's the funniest thing anytime I see someone new come in. So you'll never hear them use that word because I think, look, they believe in themselves. They have taken a us against the world mentality pretty much since James Wade's come in since 2019, and it's been especially the case this offseason where it's like everyone doesn't believe in us. And I don't think they're the championship contender they think they are. I have a hard time seeing them take out the front courts of LA or LA, Las Vegas and New York. But I do think they're in that second tier in the WNBA, which is just so wide open. Like I don't think people understand, like outside of the top three teams in the league, in my opinion, which are obviously Aces and the Liberty. And I think the Mystics have a real good shot at winning the championship this year. There's this second tier that's really undecided that I really could see the Sky finishing as high as fourth. And I can also see them finishing as low as like ninth or 10th, just because of how on any given night, these teams are so talented, Andrew. The talent in this league is insane right now, where anyone is going to be able to come in and punch you in the face on any given night and steal a W. So I know that's not to have a cop out answer here, but really just based on where the W is at right now in terms of its talent, I really could see the Sky finishing in that wide range between 4 and 9 because it's so undecided right now.
That's fair. You know what? I'll give you that because honestly, it's such a different group. I'm curious as to what we're going to be seeing. And you mentioned the front courts as well, with Las Vegas and New York obviously upgrading in that department.
Yeah.
I feel like we've seen the Chicago team the last couple of years have really strong front courts with, I think, around three players each of the last 2 years who could have been your starting center and you would have been just fine. To
Yeah.
me, on this year's roster, it feels like a lot of guards. What do you think we could see a lot of all guard lineups?
That's interesting. Probably not all guard lineups. I would say that we could see maybe more 3 guard lineups. It wouldn't
Okay.
surprise me if we saw a combination of Marina Mabrey, Rebecca Gardner, and Kalia Copper kind of manning like 1 through 3 and just being complete pests on the perimeter and just have Elizabeth Williams on the back line. I don't think people understand how good of a rim protector Elizabeth Williams is. She is someone that covers so much ground. I mean, the way that she flies from the weak side over and provides the help necessary that the Sky are going to need this year with a smaller group of play. Like again, this isn't like a team that has, I don't know, like multiple 6'5" players like they've had in years past. Like Astudu Fall being not on this team this year, I don't think people understand how big a deal that is, just given how she's won around the world. She's 6'5", she can stretch the floor a little bit. So I do think that Elizabeth Williams is going to be the one that probably is going to be a mainstay in any closing lineup that they have, because I think she's been top 5 at the rim blocks over the last 3 years and didn't really play that much in Washington last year. So she's someone that I think is going to allow them to be more frisky on the perimeter. So I don't think they're going to go all guard lineups, but I do think that they could be, I mean, they're going to have to play small. Yeah.
Some more dart heavy lineups. Yeah, I'm curious about that depth behind Harrison and Williams. I did cover the Washington Mystics last year
Right.
and was able to watch some Elizabeth Williams and definitely a great rim protector. I'm curious to see how she will fit into that starting lineup. But getting back to that closing lineup, who do you think is this team's best 5 lineup?
The best one, that's interesting. So I think I would go with a lineup of Marina Mabrey, Kalia Copper, Rebecca Gardner, Elizabeth Williams, and Isabel Harrison, just because of what that gives you from a switchability standpoint. And then this team is going to lead with its defense more than it's with its offense. I do think they're probably going to be a better team in transition than they are going to be a team slicing people up in the half court like they were last year. But I would probably lean towards that. But it also wouldn't surprise me if Alana Smith carves out a role on this team, because of, again, she's really the only stretch big that they have on this roster outside of Morgan Birch, who might not even make it out of training camp. And I mean, she's been doing well from a shooting perspective, obviously, but I mean, that's her game. But at the same time, Alana Smith is someone that they invested in. They gave her $100K for this upcoming season after she hasn't had that great of success in the WNBA, but she has come in, she's destroyed the Polish league. I mean, she won MVP, averaged over 20 points per game. So I am interested to see how she challenges maybe someone like Isabel Harrison towards the end of these games. But I do kind of see, even though the offensive fit between Isabel Harrison and Elizabeth Williams might seem a little awkward from a spacing perspective, that those two will probably be on the floor together towards the end of games.
I'm curious you didn't mention Courtney Williams in that last 5 lineup. Any reason for that?
I think Courtney Williams has been a very successful player in this league. I do think that at times that we've seen in Connecticut last year that she she shoots a lot of mid-range shots at not a high efficiency rate. And when I think about the players that I want to put around Kalia Copper, I want them to be efficient shooters, like that's what I would want if I was the coach of the Sky. And Rebecca Gardner is someone that I think, again, gives you that same defensive intensity and can give you a little bit of offense. I mean, she's so good finishing around the rim. I think she's a better shooter than what she's shown in the W last year, and she was pretty solid last year. It's not like she was bad. Like, she was just like slightly above average. And she told me, like, even last year, like, I can shoot, like I'm a good shooter. So I think in that perspective, I just think that maybe not closing with Courtney would make sense. She's someone that, again, I think gives them a lot of intensity through the first through third quarters, I guess. But at the same time, I just think Rebecca Gardner was one of the best perimeter defenders in the fourth quarter last year from a defensive rating perspective. And I think she has to be on the floor at the end of game. She's just too good.
I'll give you that. It's really a lot of talented guards, wings, perimeter players, like you said, and I'm excited to see what combinations James Wade, as the head coach and GM, has put together. One more thing though, before we get into some faster ones,
Sure.
some of the predictions maybe. Talia Copper, do you see her? What would it take for her to become that next level top tier superstar in this league?
So one thing that we saw in 2021 in the offseason when she went to France is that she was able to really hone her skills as a pick and roll facilitator. And I think that we're going to see that assist number go up. And that's what's really going to she's no longer just going to be like the slasher demolishing players on the baseline and finishing at the rim like, the wrecking ball that she is. I do think she's someone that is going to be the focal point of the defense. Like every time that she is on the floor, the opposing team is going to have to find a way to take her out. So that way, and because of that, I think she's going to have to trust her teammates to make open shots and her gravity, not even just as a shooter, but just again, like you can't let her go downhill or else it's over. So I do think that's where she's going to take that next step is being a little bit more of a facilitator this year because this again, I can't emphasize it enough. It's not just losing Courtney Vandersloot. It's losing Candace Parker and Emma Miesemann, who opened up that entire offense and were just brilliant as secondary facilitators for that team. So I think that's where I do think Ka could average like 5 assists per game this year. Wouldn't surprise me.
I love that prediction. Speaking of, we'll get right into some of those predictions. Have some fun here. Do you have a win-loss prediction for this team? I know you said 4 through 9. What do you think?
I honestly, I haven't even thought about win totals. I have been reluctant to give any of my predictions until I could even see some of these teams in the preseason. Like I know I'm going to be in Toronto for Sky Links, and that's where I was really going to see how the offense looks. Like that's the number one thing I'm curious about with this team. So I don't know. Like I don't really think I have like an exact number on that one yet. I'm
Okay.
not again sorry to cop out, but like I'll have to think about that one a little bit more and go through the schedule. But it wouldn't surprise me if they're like a 25-15 team. I think that's enough to make the playoffs.
I like that. I'll take that. I was gonna say above 500, how many games around there? That works for me. And just for this team, MVP.
For this team,
Yes,
the best chance of anyone winning MVP is Kalia Copper, without a doubt. Yeah.
agreed. Agreed. Most improved player on this team. Who do you think's gonna take a step up for the sky?
Dana Evans. I think that's not even just with this team. I think she is a prime candidate to win most improved player this year. And I think she's got so many things working in her favor with that one. So definitely Dana.
Sixth player of the year. Does
Ooh,
that does
that's a
that fit
great
her
one.
as well?
I actually could see it being Rebecca Gardner. I do think
Oh,
raw stats are enough and now that she's on people's radars, like, she honestly could have made an all defensive team last year. Kalia Copper should have been an all defensive team last year. But again, the raw stats are something that the voters tend to value more than sometimes watching the film. But I would say that Rebecca Gardner or Dana Evans could definitely take that title. But I just think Rebecca is going to probably be the first person off the bench with Dana, and I'm excited to see what she's going to be able to do this year.
I'll give you that. Defensive player of the year for this squad. Are we gonna see a similar name, or do you think Elizabeth Williams down low?
I mean, she's going to have to be the anchor of the back line. I think we're going to see. I mean, her stats, like her block percentage, has been north of 4% for most of her WNBA career, except for her first season in the W and her last one with Washington when she didn't get as much playing time because Shakira Austin burst onto the scene, like you got to see. So I do think that bigs tend to win this award, and Elizabeth Williams is probably the best candidate to win it this year if the Sky are able to have a top 4 defense.
I like it. I like it.
Yeah.
Now some quick superlatives for you before I let you get out of here, James. And you're around this team in training camp, going to preseason, like you mentioned. Who's the unsung hero for this squad?
Ooh, the unsung hero. That's a really good question, Andrew.
Stumped
You
you
really
here.
stumped me you got me with this one. I don't know why my mind is going towards Alana Smith in terms of just what
I
she
really
could
like that.
offense. I kind of think that she's someone that if she's able to tap into what she did in Poland, she's going to open up things for this offense that the Sky really are going to need. They have a lot of overlap offensively in the front court. So I'm going to go with Alana Smith. Why not?
I'll take it. Yeah, I'm a big fan of this prediction. I'm gonna be looking out for her all season long now. Class clown for this team, just for
Class
being around them.
clown. I think people don't understand how much of a goofball Kalia Copper is. I do think she has a little bit of goofiness in her that she doesn't show to the media as much, but like some things that you like see behind the scenes, I'm like, yeah, Ka has that sense of humor, and I think I'll go with her. Yeah.
I'll take it. Let's go with last one here. Best trash talker.
Oh, wow. On this team, oh, you know what? I'm going with Marina Mabry. I know Ka talk shit, but Marina Mabry, I mean, people talk about Caitlin Clark's chicken wing when she drives to the basket. I mean, Marina Mabry, full extension out, hits a shot in your face, and will let you know about it. I mean, I think I saw her talking trash during a preseason game last year when Dallas came to Chicago. So I think Marina Mabry probably takes that crown. And Courtney Williams and Ka, though, they're gonna challenge her for that title. So I'm curious to see who ends up with the crown, but I'm gonna give it to Marina.
Hey, the intensity of this 2023 Chicago Sky team, we're all going to be looking forward to watching it. James, you said you liked them in that 4-9 range, but you liked them to make the playoffs. So we're going to have our hopes up for this season. Any last words regarding the Chicago Sky heading into the 2023 season?
Just that I think this is going to be a really fun team. I think that people have sort of doubted James Wade a little bit coming out of this offseason because of, again, you lose the greatest facilitator in WNBA history in Courtney Vandersloot. You see Emma Meeseman, Candace Parker leave town. Azrae Stevens is someone that I think is really going to blossom into an all-star in LA.
Agreed.
At the same time, man, don't count out James Wade. Can't count out James Wade. He's someone that we've seen in this position before, that 2019 team really overachieve in that first year. After that Sky team was just really tough in 2018. They weren't the team that they would end up becoming. And James Wade will find every last ounce of motivation out there and use it to his advantage. I think that's just dangerous when you look at someone who has had this proven track record as one of the best head coaches in this league at this point. So don't count out the Sky is all I'm going to say, people. Don't count out the Sky. I'm not even saying that as someone that, like, I'm not a fan of this team, I'm a reporter, but from what I've seen, and when I look at the rest of the W, I just think it's wide open.
I love it. James, anything you want to promote while you're here?
Oh man, this is the part that I always hate. I guess that you can find me at the Skyhook podcast. Me and my buddy Chris Pennant have been doing it over the last few years, and it's been fun building an audience and connecting with it. So if you want to be a part of that, you can find us, the Skyhook podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. You can find my work for this upcoming season on the Chicago Sky at the Next Hoops, and probably some other obscure places that I am in talks with now that I won't say, as this goes live at some point. But yeah, I'm just looking forward to this upcoming season. If you want to follow me on Twitter, even though it's, kind of on the downswing, my handle is James_M_KAY. So I think that's all of it, Andrew. I hate the business end. I'm gonna throw it back to you now.
You know what? I appreciate it. No, that was perfect. Got it all out there. James, thank you so much for joining us here on a pro basketball show to talk about the Chicago Sky heading into the 2023 season.
Andrew, it was such a pleasure. I appreciate you having me on.
Thank you so much for tuning into a pro basketball show. You can catch a pro basketball show on streaming services such as YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify with live broadcasts on playback. Make sure to follow us at APBShow on social media platforms such as Twitter and Instagram, with more coming soon. Until next time, I'm Andrew Willett. Thank you for tuning in.